Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, excuse me. Welcome back after lunch. Simon started this morning, I think, with lots of numbers, and so that'll be a way of starting. I think I'm going to start with lots of pictures and a few moving ones. So, look, hopefully this will be a nice, easy ride back into the afternoon session, because I think all I want to do is very quickly, as a precursor to the rest of the wonderful stuff I think you're going to be hearing about this afternoon, is just tell you the Virgin Media television story, which I guess is a combo of talking about the rebranding of essentially the ITV of Ireland following its acquisition by Virgin Media, but what, in a return path, Virgin Media Television is doing with the business over here in the UK. I'm Managing Director of the television business. For those who weren't here this morning, maybe to quickly explain that we were acquired in 2015 by Virgin Media UK Ireland, and clearly as a TV broadcaster now owned by the biggest cable business in Ireland, with a parent that has a not insignificant interest in lots of content businesses. It is a very, very interesting world that we live in. And again, apologies to those of you who were here earlier, but Mike Freeze has referred to it as an experiment. I find that a little bit painful. I like to call it a case study, and I'd like to take you through that case study today. And I think it is interesting because, and I don't want to harp on the fact, but it just brings it to life when we say TV3, as the business was, is the ITV of Ireland, because that just gives you a sense of scale of what we've done in the market. And I think that's important in terms of how you rebrand a 20-year-old brand, which was inherent in culture and in Irish society, and what happens when you just change its name overnight. And secondly, what happens when you bring free-to-air in as part of a cable proposition. So look, this is the theme, when content meets connectivity. We've heard a lot about it today, but in my world, I guess it's probably about when broadcasting meets broadband, because that's been an incredibly powerful opportunity for us, the magic that comes when you make connections with content, with content as the conduit to those connections. So be that connecting families through shared viewing experiences with big, high-reach content, or those wonderful individual, bespoke, if you're the viewer, targeted if you're an advertiser, those wonderful connections you can make when you own the pipe and own the box. I think the best way to look at what we're doing is to look at it through our three key lenses, which are what we're doing in terms of viewers. We're a licensed television service, and we have national viewership obligations, despite Virgin Media in Ireland penetrating probably about half of that total universe. So the second piece is, well, what does it really mean when it comes to Virgin Media customers across all our broadband, cable and mobile services? And then importantly, advertising. What does it mean for advertisers? And they're the three lenses I'll quickly run through today. But let's start at the beginning. And anybody remember that logo? If anybody was around 20 years ago, TV3 launched exactly a year after Channel 5. It quickly developed a reputation for being one of the most successful startups in Western Europe. I think we actually got Enders to do an analysis on it at the time, and they registered that in the 6-month period we built a higher share than any other channel in Western Europe the previous 20 years, bar an adult service in Holland, I think, was the only one greater. But we managed to break what was up until then a monopoly, significant monopoly from the state broadcaster. Lots of owners came and went. ITV was a shareholder in partnership with CanWest. I mentioned it to Roma earlier. The independent Canadian broadcaster was very much part of the business. But a great story in itself, and a 17-year story of how that business built and successfully became the second most watched channel in the market, just behind RT1 in a market saturated with hundreds of channels. But the real excitement has been the last 3 years, and that's the story I'm going to tell you today, that from the acquisition of Liberty Global, Virgin Media in late 2015 has resulted in a business that's now 3 free-to-air channels. We rebranded TV3 as Virgin Media 1. We rebranded our second channel, which was 3E. We rebranded that as Virgin Media 2. And no prizes for guessing what we rebranded our third channel, which was B3, which was the business that we acquired from UTV, the UTV Ireland business, which is a whole case study in itself of UTV's Ireland's arrival into our market, but not for today, I don't think. In addition to our 3 free-to-air services, we've launched Virgin Media Sport, which is a customer-only channel, so it's available for free to all Virgin Media customers, and you'll see some examples. Its principal anchor tenant is UEFA Champions League, UEFA Europa League and Nations League and European qualifiers. So football really at the heart of it. And I'll show you some examples of that in play. It all comes together content-wise in our on-demand service, which is now the Virgin Media Player, which resonates nicely for customers, as you can imagine, as well as viewers. And that is the entire business that we now call Virgin Media Television. So some move from the 20-year-old business that we started in Dublin in 1998 to what we see now. And the rebrand was a big part of that, changing the name of a channel that was TV3 that young people in Ireland had grown up with, and calling it Virgin Media was a big ask. And then you can imagine the amount of work we went through. Do we call it Virgin 3? Do we call it VN3? So we landed and we thought, with the success of the business, why would we not lay claim on being number one? Because we were for lots of audiences. And since then, we've become number one for even more audiences. So we proudly took one. RT1 would be the principal competitor. And the rebrand, I have to say, has gone magnificently well for us, both in terms of what it has. We would have talked about the old brand probably underperforming the business. The business was a much more successful business than the channel brand would have evoked. And the rebrand forced all of our viewers in Ireland to reassess what it thought about our business. It gave people a whole new view of what our business was doing. And remarkably, in pretty similar schedules year on year, we all of a sudden saw double-digit increases in audience. And the branding, it was a great story in branding and packaging and how that brings you performance that can go way beyond what just the product is doing. The story I like probably more recently is what we did when, in terms of bringing the Virgin Media brand into places that it has never been, because we can do that now as a national television brand. And we have a national news service that was probably the trickiest to work through with Virgin Enterprises, who of course will be signing off the licensing. So showing up to Virgin and saying you're now going to license an independent national news service was an interesting conversation. But we got there, and the national news, independent news of Ireland, is now called Virgin Media News. So in talking about getting into places that the brand never got into, this is a St. Patrick's Day. This is our Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, our Prime Minister on the left, and his annual St. Patrick's Day visit. So you can imagine the ripple effects that had, and that is an actual shot. In fact, Mike Freeze was on to us recently asking us had we scanned it in. It's gone all the way up through the Liberty Global organisation. And I tell the story which I particularly like, which is not about just that shot was, but this is what I love. This is our reporter here. And having realised the protocol of the White House, these is all our competitors up here, and this is Gavin. So it's a great story in how you can get a brand into places that you wouldn't have expected. So look, what does this mean for viewers? And I said I'd talk about viewers, but just very quickly, I think a real part of what we did in terms of driving the business was building the production values. We have great content in the television business in Ireland, but it was probably a little bit let down. And we don't see our competition, even though I keep referring to them as just RTE, it goes way beyond that, the hundreds and hundreds of channels that overspill. In fact, I would have in previous lives in the advertising industry talked about Dublin being the most competitive television marketplace in Europe, because in effect, it's as competitive as London. It's all the channels that are available in London, plus a very strong local market that commands probably about now 60% of viewership, all in the native tongue, if you like. So there's more channels available in our local language than there is in any other city in Europe. So it's a very competitive marketplace. So we really have to make sure we're producing to a world-class standard. And what was fantastic about bringing connectivity in with content was it allowed us to invest in our infrastructure. And with a very small amount of capital investment into our business, we transformed the look and feel. And you see an example of that coming to life in a second in one of the examples that I'm going to show you. But it also meant we got to do things that we couldn't have done previously. So I mentioned blood earlier. And hopefully those of you who watched it on Channel 5 or are in a position to watch it now on Virgin Media On Demand in the UK will recognise what a brilliant drama that was. Record-breaking audiences for us in Ireland, record-breaking on-demand audiences in Ireland. I know my old colleague Brent Frau is particularly chuffed with how it's performed on Channel 5. But it's a lovely story in what the connectivity connections have meant for us being in a position to create content as a relatively small indigenous free-to-air broadcaster, because whilst Blood is commissioned by Virgin Media TV in Ireland, it was produced by Company Pictures, a Liberty Global-owned production company. It was acquired by Virgin Media UK, who also put in some funding for their VOD service, and it was distributed by All3Media to over 60 markets. So this was really building connections that matter for us, which is our purpose, our new purpose that we're bringing through the business, and using all of the Liberty Global tentacles. So I'm going to show you an example now of if that's what it means for viewers and for the core business and working to that national agenda. How do we give customers more? And I think the best way to show you how we give customers more is to take you through 3 examples of how we took the power of free-to-air television and the mass reach, and show you that in the case of free-to-air exposure to Champions League, how we drive viewers to exclusive matches that are on our sports channel, how with Six Nations, which is free-to-air rights only, we managed to post-match bring that viewership into an exclusive customer environment, and then thirdly, with Blood, how we made episodes of Blood available to customers in a unique and exciting way. So 3 short examples.
So we're almost ready to head over to Anfield for Virgin Media customers watching on Virgin Media 1. Switch over to channel 400 now. On Virgin Media 1, we are leaving you at this point. The 8 o'clock news follows next.
Well, Ireland's Got Talent follows us here on Virgin Media 1. And Virgin Media customers, join us on Virgin Sport. We're going to continue the chat and the build-up. Tomorrow, our spectacular week of sport continues. Ireland take on France. 2 o'clock here on Virgin Media. Join us at the Aviva to see if Ireland can join Wales and England in the hunt for the Six Nations.
You wanted the truth, Kat. You were right.
You're behaving like you're still some delinquent from the bog.
The series finale of Blood, next Monday at 9 on Virgin Media 1. If you're a Virgin Media TV customer, you don't have to wait. Watch the final episode of Blood right now on Virgin TV On Demand.
So those examples have been over the last 6 months alone. So the trajectory of what the business has done, the eagle-eyed would have spotted Mick McCarthy, who was part of our Champions League match panel before he got the job to be the Irish manager. But and the more eagle-eyed would spot that we were still hopeful of doing something in the Six Nations at that stage. But we won't talk about that. Very quickly, our approach to advertising then and to advertisers. I called this out earlier, and it's really what we call the foot in both camps. So our ability to, as a business, talk to the entire nation with those big free-to-air moments, but to equally go in and talk to discrete customers in their homes via their box network. So we're working very closely with the LG advanced data team. There's some fantastic work coming through that in how we're not just only using that advertising opportunity, but actually using it to really think about where we point content and those opportunities that come with having this foot in both camps, and as I said earlier, essentially hedged. The work we're doing with data is very much all about it being our secret sauce. We talk about data being the new oil or the new gold. Well, for us, we see it as being very much an ingredient and a sauce that goes on, that makes the product all the better. So I'm sure you get that analogy. And what we've done, and I think a great example of what we're doing with data and interrogating, particularly the difference between somebody watching our free-to-air services via our own box network and those who aren't, has been our ability to, in advance of launching AdSmart in Ireland, which I've got some news in a moment, and which we're about to do, but even in advance of that, launching what we would call addressable advertising 1.0, which is the ability for our platform to talk to customers, existing customers, and potential new acquisition customers or new customers to the business in a different way. Basically, we're all aware of the problem. You have an acquisitions campaign, it's offering discounted rates for the next 6 months, and all your customers come along and say, hang on a second, why aren't I getting that rate? Well, here's how we overcome it in Ireland. So in the one ad, and this is our mobile ad, Bigfoot, I'm not sure where that's running in the UK, and this is the ad that will just go out into our box network, and this is our recruitment with a very nice offer that goes out to all other free-to-air viewers. So for us, a really nice step into addressable. Speaking of which, delighted to confirm today that this much talked about partnership with Sky goes live this summer. Monday, July 1st is our targeted launch date, and that means we will be very much on the advertising scene for the whole second half of 2019. Very, very exciting time for the business, particularly a business that has the advertising competency coming out of Dublin and has all the free-to-air business and virtually no advertising activities of any scale in the UK. My colleagues from Virgin Media Solutions are here today. Gareth Vaughan Jones, who runs Virgin Media Solutions UK, and Paula McCarthy, who runs Virgin Media Solutions in Ireland. And both of those guys are really running the ad business that's going to be driving this in partnership with Sky. So, we're very excited as we count down. This is next generation, and we believe this partnership ensures, new and old advertisers will have access to now over 13 million homes in the UK for AdSmart. So we're really doing our bit in terms of scale and momentum. And interestingly, in Ireland, by the end of the year, we're also announcing today that we will go live with our free-to-air services on the Sky network and Virgin Media network as in terms of addressable insertion. And that's a game changer in our market, because for the first time you will have the biggest free-to-air channels accessible through AdSmart. So you'll have the wide reach of about 70% of homes and about 60% of commercial viewership combined. So very, very exciting times in the Irish market in terms of addressable. But particularly for today, I think we're very excited to launch and to confirm our launch in July of AdSmart on Virgin Media boxes. So that's me for now. I'm delighted to finish up with that news. Terribly exciting times, I have to say, for us in the business, where I have to say, what's going on in Ireland has kind of booked an awful lot of trends. We've got free-to-air channels that are growing audience. Who would have thought? We've got record on-demand viewership coming from the power that our free-to-air channels are driving through it. And Roman and Mark, I think, showed some videos earlier on of the product in action. I've talked a lot today about what we're doing. So with your permission, I'm just going to show you, I think it's a 90-second sizzle, Roma, I think you called yours sizzle tape of what we've done. But what it is what we achieved in 2018 as a business. We're all very proud of it. I'd like to show it to you today. This is what the business achieved in 2018. You'll see some numbers here. Multiply them by 15 to put them into an Irish context, because some of the numbers might look relatively small in terms of viewership. So I will play the tape.
Why are you here today?
Well, I love singing. I've sung all my life.
The winner of Ireland's Got Talent is RDC.
They can say we've lost our minds.
Grand Slam winners on St. Patrick's Day.
If they call us crazy.
Welcome to this 3 News special as the country is hit by the most extreme snowstorm in almost 40 years.
Prime Minister's hopes of renegotiating any elements of her controversial Brexit deal have been dealt a blow.
Brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
Yes!
Said when converting to the Irish market, I meant UK market, so multiply by 15. So if that's a million dreams, it's 15.7 million dreams when it comes to the UK. So look, whether experiment or case study, we know we're breaking new ground, and particularly happy when that becomes the good news that I think it clearly is for not just advertisers, not just our viewers, but most importantly our customers. Thank you very much.